r/AskReddit. Teachers of Reddit, what is the most disturbing thing your student has ever done? Few years back I taught 2nd grade. An 8-year-old boy would always bring little treats for me in the morning like candy, a cookie or even these tiny animal toys. This one morning he came to my desk and told me he had a gift for me. He opened his bag and pulled out a big brassiere and gave it to me. I was speechless, took it and put it in a drawer and just said thank you. Called in his mom and told her about this. Kid never gave me gifts again. My dad grew up relatively poor and his father was a manager at a women's lingerie store. He has some funny stories about the holiday gifts he would give to his teachers. It was customary to give something, but they couldn't afford it, so his dad made do with what he could get for free/cheap. Middle school English teacher. I had a student pull a tooth out of his own head to get out of silent reading. It was a baby tooth, thank God, but according to mom it was not loose. He just sat at his desk and grabbed it and yanked it back and forth and popped it out and came up to the desk bleeding all over himself and said he wasn't able to read anymore, so could he just put his head down. He was sent to the nurse and mom was horrified. I had a girl who couldn't be in the classroom and had to be on a 1:1 with me at all times. But she couldn't be in the classroom because she was extremely violent and deliberately stabbed another child in the eye with a colored pencil, then laughed about it. The other child had to be hospitalized. When we asked her why she did it, she started laughing again and said because I wanted to. She would also randomly attack kids on the playground and in the halls. When they put her on a 1:1 with me and she couldn't do that anymore, she started attacking me on a daily basis. She was 4. This is basically one of my main clients. I work in a group home for the mentally disabled/handicapped. A lot of my clients are prone to outbursts of some kind. But I have this one client. Since he was old enough to stand by himself has been insanely violent. Stabbing anyone that came close enough. Running away. Biting. Hitting. Kicking. Spitting. You name it. He'll throw his head back and just absolutely smash it into pulp if you don't intervene. But the thing is, he laughs the entire time. If you ask him why he just hurt someone, he'll laugh and tell you it's fun. Or he doesn't know and just does it. He's insanely smart, but insanely manipulative. He'll invent intricate reasons to isolate staff or his family members just so he can attack them. I can't even tell you how many scars I have from him alone. His family refuses to acknowledge that something is seriously wrong and that he's actually genuinely hurting people in severe ways. So our hands are tied and there isn't really anything we as staff can do about it. After working with him for several years, it's clear as day that he never actually feels joy or happiness unless he's hurting something. Everything he does is manipulation or a lure for an attack. Crushed a bird in his fist. 7th grade, this super fucked up kid I knew picked up a pencil and without provocation straight up stabbed the teacher's pet dove to death. Please like this video. It helps out a lot. Thank you. I teach 4-year-olds part-time, which means I usually do art and recreation in the afternoons. There's this girl in my class, let's call her Mary, who is a tiny terror that frequently runs around making other kids cry. Her moves are very calculated: a hair pull, kicking a toy over, snatching art. She waits until the other child is crying before she relents. She never wants the toy, just the reaction. On the other hand, this boy, Jim, is her polar opposite and often the voice of reason in my class. He's a gentle giant, the biggest kid in preschool. He shares happily, is kind during playtime, and is probably the most thoughtful human I've ever met. Well, one day during outside time, Mary kept targeting Jim. He was pretty good natured the whole time. She would snatch a shovel from him, and he would respond kindly by saying, "It's okay, you can have it. Toys are for sharing," stuff like that. Sidebar, remember those giant red and yellow cars that kids sit in and pedal with their feet? The yard has 5 for the kids to share. Mary was leaning against a wall and Jim pushing one of those cars. The kids like running around with them, so that was normal. Jim was probably a good 30 feet away from her when he suddenly started accelerating. He was aimed like a homing missile, pointing straight at poor clueless Mary. Genuinely believed he would turn away at the last minute or stop. I was wrong. He slammed the car right into Mary, effectively crunching her against the wall. I'll never forget how long it took for her to inhale. I was shaking. I thought he cracked her ribs. Her entire back was bruised, but thankfully no further damage. I was too shocked to be angry. After passing Mary to my co-teacher, I turned to Jim, who was sulking in the corner, and asked, "Why did you do that?" He just shrugged and very calmly said, "I was just trying to take care of our problem. 100% scared of this kid now." He said our problem, so it sounds like you are safe, as long as you stay on his good side. Thank you. Don Corleone is the only way to address him now. I had a 5th grade student pick up 2 brick-sized rocks and try and stone another kid to death. Kids in my mum's class tried to poison another little girl they were having a feud with. They tampered with her snack and put things like sharp staples and hand sanitizer in it. They also put pencil lead in, thinking it would harm her. Obviously ultimately harmless, but the intent was there. I'm glad one of the little boys involved came up to my mom and let her know what the plan was out of guilt. They're in 4th grade, old enough to know better and to know what eating harmful things can do to a person. My first girlfriend works at a children's home with mental illness. There is a 8-year-old boy there for molesting his 5-year-old sister, and there is a warning on his door to his room that it is to never be closed for any reason, as he has been known to try and sexually touch the other kids and staff. A kid tried to hold the classroom hostage by pulling a box cutter. Immediately started making crazy demands. Before security could even arrive, a big kid pushed him down, grabbed the box cutter right out of his hands, and said, "Quit being an asshole." Then sat right back down for the lesson to continue. Edit. Thank you so much for the gold, kind stranger. If I knew where the big kid went on to after middle school, I'd share it with him. That kid is an absolute fucking badass. I agree. Quit being an asshole was the only response after pushing the kid over emo. Recently had one of my students tell a pregnant teacher that he wanted to punch her in the stomach. Another student said, "You can't do that. She's pregnant." The first student then said, "That's the point. These are 5th graders. This is also in a school that rarely has behavior problems, so this was quite a shock." Something similar happened to me when I was pregnant with my first. A student told me he was going to make me lose the baby. It's the only time I've really ever flipped out on a student in my 7 years of teaching. That student had some serious issues, though, and by the end of the school year I was the only teacher he would talk to about the shit that went on his life, bouncing from foster home to foster home, abuse, etc. He left a letter on my desk at the end of the year saying that my unborn child was incredibly lucky to have me as a mom. I ugly cried at my desk when I read it. I caught some kid trying to take inappropriate photos of his lady friends in the class. When I noticed him doing something fishy, he was directly aiming the camera to where the female students were sitting. I told him to hand over the phone, and he got visibly uncomfortable but complied. I handed it over to his form tutor, who was a lady, and explained the situation. I figured if there were any photos of female students it wouldn't be okay for me to see it. First sweep through his documents didn't reveal anything, but luckily I thought of suggesting her to check the hidden category, and I'm told everything was in there. School took disciplinary action as a result. I was a supervisor for a special program that involved about 20 students that were expelled from other schools. Most of them were known gang members. The program had a strict no bandana policy. One day kid 1, M16, stole kid 2's, M17, cigarettes while kid 2 was in an office session about his homework. We found out later that kid 1 thought it was hilarious and was laughing about it. Kid 2 goes for his smokes during break and can't find them. He proceeds to flip out and starts screaming about how he's going to fuck someone up. No one admitted it. We de-escalated the situation and later took him to the store to buy a new pack for him. A few days go by and Kid 1 gets ratted out by another student who was in the same gang as Kid 2. We didn't know any of this was going on at the time. One afternoon during a group session, we would have them sit in a circle during some lessons instead of at desks. Out of nowhere these two boys jump up and yell "Yo Kid 1" as they literally run at him and proceed to beat him up right in front of everyone until the staff broke it up. All three got expelled after that, and I have no idea what happened to them, although I can imagine some scenarios based on how committed they were to gang life. Edit. Us buying cigarettes for a minor is certainly a point of controversy as evidenced in the comments. A few people correctly pointed out that given the circumstances, it was the best decision at the time. It helped us calm him down, take him away from the tense environment, and offered us an opportunity to create a moment of trust building in adult figures, which we know he didn't have much of. The majority of those kids were daily smokers, weed and tobacco, so this was not a moment to try and be authoritative about smoking. Cigarettes were a coping mechanism more than anything. These kids had really shitty lives overall. Cigarettes are a kind of stress relief for them. No one joins a gang because they grew up in a privileged environment. I'm sat here thinking how strange and yet how helpful it is for teachers to take a kid to the store to buy cigarettes. They shouldn't be smoking. Nobody should. But by taking them to get cigs after theirs were stolen, you stop them getting stressed from nicotine withdrawal. You also guaranteed they came back to class after a very quick trip to the store. If they'd stormed out, they probably wouldn't have come back to class that day and might have been penalized for an unauthorized absence. I'm guessing that staff in a special program for teens with gang affiliations know which battles to pick. Thank you so much for watching the entire video. I would be so grateful if you could like this video and subscribe to the channel. New videos every day.